Hi Richard, it's great to hear that Acora's just launched a brand new specialist chair to join your adaptable seating range. I understand that this chair has been designed to meet users with high postural needs, is that correct?
Yeah, thank you, Jaden. Thanks for the opportunity to be on your show here. That's quite right. And I think over the years, we've rightly been known for rise recliner chairs, possibly. This really takes us to a new place, to chairs that are for more complex postural presentations. And hopefully that means we can be the sort of one-stop shop from the more basic rise recliner needs through to the more complex postural presentations.
Great, I really look forward to seeing it. So I understand that you've also got a studio set up, which you've been using through the pandemic for webinars and training, etc. And you've got this new product in there, so you can demonstrate it to us, be a little more visual and clearer to understand. Shall we go over to the studio if we change the camera over and you can start the presentation?
Yeah, let's do that. There's nothing like seeing it in the flesh. So let's jump to the studio and then I'll show you a demonstration of the actual product. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Richard Smith, one of the team here at Accora, and today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Configura Advance chair. I'm actually here in the studio at Accora, and this is where we run our free webinar series. It's worth a look on our website webinar page to see what upcoming sessions we have. They're free to join and they cover some really great content, including posture management, pressure care, and there's also some legal content from Michael Mandelstam as well, so please have a look there. But in terms of the Advance chair, the Advance is the newest chair in our range, and really this is a chair which allows us to meet more complex postural needs for users who are hoisted. So I've got two versions of the Advance here. First, with the standard backrest for low to moderate postural requirements. And then I've got the postural support backrest, which is for more complex postural presentations. They are in fact the same base chair, and you can simply interchange between the standard backrest and the upgraded backrest. So this really makes it really flexible, one chair for a wide range of needs. And we think that the Advance will give us the ability to go right from the sort of basic rise recliners through to the more complex postural presentations. As you would expect from a chair like this, it's got 4 braked casters. You've got a subframe that allows easy hoist access underneath, plenty of tilting space. It's also got forward tilt, and as we'll come on to, it's got lots of adjustments in terms of the size and the pressure care and lots of different postural options, and it's really quite cost effective. So we really hope this is quite an exciting addition to our range. And that's a little potted summary of the Advance chair.
It looks really good. So can you give us some information on the level of pressure care, what your seat cushions offer, and any other contact surfaces as well, please?
Yeah, thanks, Jade. So what you've got is all the contact areas are covered with this sort of Dartex vapor permeable fabric, which is 4-way stretch, wicks away sweat, and is kind of breathable and easy to wipe clean. Then in the seat base itself, you have a high risk pressure reducing visco foam cushion, and I'll show you what that looks like. It is actually the same as in all of our other chairs in the range, so it all works in the same way. And what you basically have is a visco foam cushion, and it also has a removable core. So you can actually remove that core and then insert your own cushion, assuming it's approximately the right size, which most are, and then upgrade it to more of a dynamic cushion if you needed to. So hopefully we can meet all of the pressure care needs within this chair that you might come across.
Sure, and there's also a new feature you have on the backrest, isn't there? That's like anti-shear as well. So from a point of pressure, that would help out as well. Is that correct?
Thank you. Yeah, so that's a really good point. So what we've done on the backrest, I'm just going to make this nice again. What we've done in terms of the backrest recline is you have what we call this reduced shear mechanism. So as you recline, it sort of follows the back down. So you minimize any of the shearing force that you tend to get when you recline in most chairs. So the backrest sort of follows your backrest down. I'll just do that again so you can see that as you recline, it really sort of follows you backwards. It's a bit difficult to see without actually me sitting in it. It's what we call body move, which really puts it in a nutshell, really. It moves with the body. The other thing I'll just show you, which sort of relates to that, is the leg rest elevation. Once again, the leg rest elevation follows you as you come up. So when you come up to that quite high level of leg rest elevation, you end up with full support from thighs under the knees down to the calves. So both the backrest and the leg rest really move with you to, as you said, Jade, reduce any shear and optimize the pressure management.
Yeah, I was going to say that's it's always looked at that what materials being used to obviously reduce pressure, but obviously the actual function of the chair itself and having the correct position would have a massive impact on posture care and pressure function, like obviously how pressure relieving something is. So as you know, as we know, a lot of pressure sores are caused by shear and somebody not sitting in a chair comfortably. So obviously this design looked like it would work really well to obviously reduce pressure sores in general, hopefully. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about that underlying function as much as it is the materials that go on top of it. It's a good point.
Sure. And also, obviously, that being said, with the range of chairs that you have, with the idea that one size fits all, what sort of level of adaptation in scale is offered to like reissue or for multi-users, and how easy is that to achieve as well?
Sure. So this one actually is a one size fits all chair, as you said, and it's got quite a broad range of adjustment. I'll show you how that kind of works. So first you have 16 to 22 inches in the width, like so. So you do it by sliding out the armrests, and the nice thing is here is that you can do that without having to replace parts. So you don't have to replace the seat squab, it just overlaps the cushion. So 16 to 22 in the seat width. Then you also get 16 to 22 in the depth. That's a sliding mechanism here, like so. So that's really quite easy to do. Once again, no extra parts. And then in the leg rest elevation, I'll just do it this way for a second. You have 13 to 21 in the height adjustment. So quite a broad range there. 13 to 21 in terms of the height there. And what we've found so far is that I think the youngest user we've accommodated is 9 years old, and then the tallest user, if you like, is about 6'4". So quite a broad range. We're not saying it's paediatric per se, but possibly on that crossover group. Hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So I was thinking maybe we could do a little bit of scenario-based demos. If I give you an example of a client, can you explain how the chair would be adapted to suit that client? Sure. And whether it would work for them as well? Sure. So say we have a small-framed elderly lady that has a kyphosis and she sacral sits and is adducted at the knees. So we'd like her to have more postural support, reduce pressure on her sacrum, and offer her good head support to allow her to have obviously better social interactions with people. As she currently sits in a day chair, her feet don't touch the floor, and due to her hunched position, her viewpoint is the floor, so she finds it very difficult to make eye contact with people.
That's a good. I mean, it's a good illustration. I suppose one of the first questions I just want to ask in that case is whether that person is hoisted. I mean, it's not a question you have to necessarily answer now, but
I would say the people that I was thinking about, based on particularly, yes, they would be. But then there is obviously the need that sometimes they can stand transfer. So with like a turning aid, it depends on if they weight there or not, really. But
sure.
I would say predominantly with that kind of presentation, they may not walk confidently. So it would be more of either a turning aid transfer or a hoist, one of the two.
Yeah, no, sure. It's a good point. It just neatly allows me just to say that it does have forward tilt. That isn't a riser function, so it isn't a riser recliner chair. So it's just worth being aware of that. That's it. So it's, if you like, most at home when the person is hoisted, but it is also quite possible that you can transfer into it with perhaps a standing aid or some kind of transfer aid. You may, though, wish to remove the foot plate. So that would be sort of the first consideration, is around the transfers and how appropriate.
Is that easily taken off the foot plate? Is it quite?
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, so we've designed that particularly to be quite easy to remove. So we can just flip 2 little clips there.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Actually, Jade, you asked how easy is a size adjustment to do. What we've got is this click and lock system. So they're just little latches that you can flip out, and those apply to all of the adjustments on the chair, foot plate, size. So all of the adjustments that you make day to day, if you will, we've tried to make them as easy as possible. Okay. So that's quite easy to remove. So coming back to your scenario there, I think possibly one of the most impactful things we could do is to provide a decent level of tilt in space. So plenty of tilt, that's going to help with the social interaction, and crucially, hopefully with that kyphosis should help to sort of open her up and allow better social interaction, a better eye line so she can interact with her environment. We might want to consider, I know you said she got some postural needs, but we may want to consider this backrest, possibly by doing the cushions like so.
Sure, yeah.
We've found that really helpful for accommodating kyphosis sometimes, because you can sort of accommodate the C-shaped spine in here and provide quite a nice, comfortable level of support.
Yes, usually with kyphosis, from my experience, is that their head would be predominantly further forward than what their back would be. So with the waterfall, even with a high degree of tilt, they usually sometimes don't have any contact on the head. So being able to bring the head pillow further beyond the back cushions, that usually does help.
Yeah, it's a really good point. It sort of depends a bit on the presentation of the kyphosis once you've tilted back. But absolutely, you can now bring this forward.
Sure.
Obviously, you want to do it in a way that doesn't just exacerbate the kyphosis.
Yeah.
But often we'd like to think that as you tilt back, that really sort of opens them up, and there's not so much more you need to do from a postural point of view. There is more we can do, as you can see, but we'd probably, with that sort of a presentation, and perhaps an elderly user where they just want some comfort rather than particularly postural management, this might well be better. And we could, of course, because she's quite small, we can go down to 16 in the width, possibly 16 in the depth, down to 13 in the height if we needed to. So I'd be confident that we could accommodate her size.
Sure.
It then be a case of plenty of tilt, plenty of accommodation and support on the backrest, if that makes sense.
I think that with, especially with elderly people, just from experience, that the more contact somebody has, the more their tone will reduce anyway. So predominantly they're in a kyphotic position because they've started to get that fetal position because they don't know where they are in space. So obviously that element of tilt in space will give more comfort and contact to try and obviously ease a better position. That's what I found anyway. So that degree of tilt looks...
That's a really good point, actually. And sometimes we see that just really nicely play out where you tilt back and that kyphosis almost starts to disappear. As you say, once they've got support and they know where they are in space, that tone starts to reduce. So absolutely, that is really key.
And with the, I think I made a comment about the, I don't know if it's the other scenario that I'm going to do, but about her legs as well. I said that she's adducted.
Yes, you're quite right. I forgot about the adduction. So we might want to do a pommel in that case.
Okay, that's what I was.
So she's going to be adducted, which means her knees are going to be together. So we can, as a sort of, we tend to do this on a special modification basis to get the right size and make sure it's appropriately used. But basically we can provide a pommel here so it fits and just keeps those knees apart a little bit to avoid any pressure points building up here.
Okay. And just is there modifications? Say, for example, you had somebody that was more complex or they asked for certain things. Is there modifications that you can make within reason to the chair? So say, for example, she was adducted at the knees, but then she also clamped like her heels and that together. Could you potentially put a separation between the legs? Is that a possibility that you could build up in between the legs or something like that?
So couple of points. So the answer is yes. A bit of detail around that. One is we have a team of product specialists who come out and assess individually. So we'd want to assess individually and see what modifications need to be made. That's point one. Point two is we have an in-house upholsterer who does this for us. So within reason, we can make any kind of upholstery wedges and bits and pieces that need to be attached around the crux of the frame, if you will. So we've actually got quite a lot we can do there. We call it our special modification process.
Sure, it sounds really good. Okay, so I've got another scenario for you. So we've also got a tall client over 6 foot. I'll say under 6'4" to meet with your obviously your highest that you've had. So he has cerebral palsy, has really high tone. He can't achieve a 90-degree position within hip flexion, and it's fixed at 120. He also has fixed contractures in his knees, can only reach a max extension of 60, and his left leg is abducted, his right leg's adducted, and there is some correction, so he can be movable slightly with support. He also has a left side pelvic obliquity, as the way his knees are, the way he presents, so the weight's all through the left IT. We have issue with sacral sitting as well, particularly on the left side, to accommodate his fixed position due to the negative angle of his legs and his hip position. So the main option is to accommodate his position rather than correct, and give as much contact as possible to try and reduce his tone, but obviously not compromise the level of pressure relief for him as well.
Yep. Okay. Good. Can you just sorry, you might have to help me pick up on some of the bits if
sure, I was going to say, it was quite quick.
Yeah. Let me just ask you one question about that. What's going on, sort of, on the trunk?
Okay, so if his hip position, he can't reach 90, so he's not hunched over, he's more reclined, if anything. So there's not any issues, but where he sits on his left, so I'm kind of like positioning myself like it, where he's leaning on his left, there is a bit of a lean to the left-hand side, so a bit of a shortening, convex on the right apex on the left. So probably need some thoracic support on the left-hand side as well, but
sure.
Not.
So that's an interesting one. I mean, I think you've obviously got quite a lot going on there and quite a complex presentation. So I think first of all that joint visit approach would be good, and we can do that now. We can do it with all the precautions if we need to. Until you said about accommodation at the end, I was wondering about this backrest, because obviously we have more the places to go in terms of that lateral support.
Yeah.
But if the goal is more accommodation, his perhaps wants more comfort, is a bit elderly, then possibly you might get it out of this one as well.
This particular client, I wouldn't have said they're not elderly. I'd say middle-aged.
Right. Okay.
And also without any kind of support, because due to his high tone, although it's medicated, due to his high tone, it could get worse. So it's kind of keeping at a level that he's at. We don't want him to get any worse. So
sure.
More relevant postural
So we
support.
might be looking at this then, because we've got much more scope to provide more lateral support as things develop.
Sure.
First of all, picking up on the main point, he can't sit upright, so you'd want to put a little bit of backrest recline on to accommodate that lack of hip range of movement. You may want to actually lock out that position, so you've got a lockout function here that allows you to set the angle of the backrest, so it's fixed.
So somebody can't either bring him up or that if a carer, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So there's no risk of people sort of inadvertently changing that position. Also, in terms of the lack of extension at the knees, I think you said 60 degrees. We've got an element of negative tilt on there, as you can see.
That's great.
So we should be able to accommodate that.
Yeah.
If that wasn't quite enough, we could just move this cushion forward a bit to give a bit more of that.
Okay. Yeah.
So we can do that. We've also got, with this backrest, we've got plenty of support in terms of bringing these wings in and out. All of those wings move in and out as you would kind of expect, and they also move in and out that way as well, so towards you and forward and back. And you can also control the angle of those. So those are super adjustable, those top two sections. And then you also have the removable laterals here.
Sure.
And then what you've got going on at the bottom here is essentially two waterfall pillow sections. So just thinking about your abduction, the pelvic obliquity there, we may want to build out one section to accommodate or manage that on the bottom there, which you could do. Because if you imagine you've
seen the actual seat cushion itself to try and give a bit of level out, like I know we want to accommodate, but don't want it to get any worse. So could you put maybe like a more support to one side on the left-hand side to not to dig further in? But then I suppose the obliquity is probably relevant to the lean, so as long as we've taken the weight from the left-hand lean, if that makes sense, you probably wouldn't be putting as much weight through, but that hip position would.
So what you've got is basically the frame of the chair underneath, and then the backrest as well, and then the cushioning all goes on that. So we can build up both the backrest and the seat base. So we could build up, say you've got your pelvic obliquity and it's fixed on the right-hand side, we can build up under that IT, for example. So that can be done backrest and seat base, if that's sort of where you're getting to there. I think those are possibly the main points in that presentation. It's that increased tone, I would say, that really means that we'd want to kind of get in there and try it. That's where it becomes a little bit more complex.
Potentially, obviously, although there may be a level of high tone, if he's supported correctly, then again, what with medication and other therapies, it should hopefully reduce
absolutely.
slightly.
And then we might be able to start to unwind that leg rest position a little bit, for example, or unwind the backrest position to give a bit more range of movement. But I think it's going to...
I suppose after a physio session and stretches and stuff, you might have more range, so you can accommodate that if need be.
Exactly, yeah. And I suppose it's about, being able to accommodate where it might go, but also hopefully that improvement, as you point out there, with physio and medication.
Sure. Could you just, because we kind of saw the backrest and some of the movements, but can you just show us, just for the purpose of the demo, like how much they actually move apart and stuff, if that makes sense?
These top sections you're thinking?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, sure. So here's your backrest, and what you've got is these sections here, and they come in. If I just sort of go to extremes for a moment, they each go in as far as that, and out as far as that, and then you've got movement forward and back like that, back to there. I'm conscious I'm front on, so probably not the easiest to see. And then in angle like that, and then identical with the bottom section of this as well.
Can I just ask something whilst you're on that one? So if you had somebody with quite predominant kyphosis, can you move the head support without obviously pushing the head too far forward, but so they've got some sort of contact? Can you take that up and over? Does it move forward? I couldn't really see with that position.
So it probably doesn't move up and over, if I've understood you right. It's more, so we can literally go forward and back like that.
Sorry, that's what I meant. Does it come forward? Yeah.
And
so
like that. Yeah, perhaps I'll just pop it that way so you can get a bit of a view on that. So like that.
Oh right, that's it. Yeah, it comes forward. Yeah, that makes sense.
What you can also do is raise and lower the whole backrest section. That's where we get our quite big range of height adjustment.
Yeah.
And then we've just got the normal waterfall pillow sections at the bottom. As I said, removable laterals. You can see those. We've tried to make the laterals. We've separated the day-to-day removal of the laterals from the initial setup. Most laterals, you sort of, every time you take them off, you take them out of adjustment, whereas this is we've separated that. Also, I just point out, I don't know how clearly you can see that, but all these click and lock levers, so we're not reliant on that sort of ratchet approach that friction
they're really
approach.
frustrating, and they're not. From my experience, like, I'm not saying they're bad, but obviously from that development, it's a lot easier because, especially when you have to unscrew and kind of lift and push to try and keep it into place. Like, there's loads of times where I've over tightened it and that the actual grip's gone on it and it loses. Yeah,
that's the sort of thing. Yeah, so each point is labelled, and this speaks to your initial point about how easy it is to adjust the size. It's all these little latches. They go into place, locking it into place. There's no reliance on friction, and they're all labelled. So it becomes quite easy to adjust.
Care plan as well. It's good for people to have instructions.
And we're hoping, because it's all labelled and it's all very sort of clear, positive positioning, that in an equipment store it becomes easier to recycle it, because you haven't got to just sort of say, fix the wing about there. It's position 1, 2, or 3, for example.
Yeah, sure. And do you? Well, obviously this chair's too new to have had that scenario yet, but will you offer like a reassessment for an existing chair? Do you give that level? So say if somebody had one in their stores or purchased them, can you come out and do a reissue for somebody and do a plan with them to how they should set it up?
Absolutely. That's precisely what we're aiming at really there is. So yes, we would. So we might come out in the field and we'd say, look, you don't need to buy a new one. You've got one in stores. Here's a 1-page, 2-page sheet on how to set it up, and you can go away and kind of get that set up accordingly.
And then even potentially, if the person hasn't got as many needs of that, they can then purchase just the backrest, I presume, on the other one to the right.
Yeah, absolutely. So say they've got this one in store, no need to buy this one, just buy the backrest bit, essentially.
Sure. Okay.
Perhaps just one thing I'll just show you quickly is one of the, we haven't got them all just here now, but one of the backrest options we've got for the standard backrest. Okay. So you do have options.
Oh, okay.
So Velcro onto this one here. So like that on there for if you need a little bit more postural encouragement.
That would help with
Apologies, I've actually got one with the, I'm going to try and show you one with the matching fabric actually. Just give me a second, you'll be able to see it easy as well, because it's a bit...
I think having the contrast kind of showed you the shape of it, so it gives you an idea.
Yeah, sorry, I haven't actually got that said. So then you've got the next level up, which is this one here, made by Cubitus for us, which then gives you ability to manage and correct a little bit more within this one.
Can you move that? Sorry, could you just turn that to the side on where you pulled that off and put it back on again? Because you can't, because it's black. It's kind of hard.
Yeah,
to,
it's really quite hard to see, isn't
it? Little laterals on it that you can attach to any position.
Yeah.
Oh wow, okay, that's really good. And is that the Velcro? Is that the soft side of it that's on the seat? Yeah.
Exactly right. Yeah. So that's that one. And then also we've got a new one that we've introduced quite recently, which kind of combines a little bit of lateral support. Would have been ideal for your first lady, by the way, Jade. This one here, possibly.
Yeah.
Where you've got these it's called the cocoon backrest. You've got these sort of, it's a combination of like a waterfall backrest, but with postural support as well.
Yeah, sure. That's great.
So all of those are compatible with this standard backrest, and by the way, are compatible with the rest of our range of chairs. It's really,
so if somebody had quite basic needs but needed more support around their head or around their sides to try and as a prevention measure.
Exactly right. Yeah. I think what we're seeing out there is that probably about 70% of users this one with its combinations of backrest works, and it's those sort of remaining more complex presentations like that second gentleman you had there, which this one might be appropriate for.
Sure.
So hopefully that gives a bit of a view as to what the chair does and all the sort of various accessories and adjustments.
Definitely, and yeah, I can see how it would support a very, very wide ranging clients. How does it compare, lastly, just with cost? Everyone wants to know that, obviously, gets the fundamentals of it. With regards to other chairs on the market with the same sort of spec, where do you sit in the market as well?
So for the standard backrest, you're looking at about 1,500 to 2,000, and for this one, you'd probably be looking at more like 2,000 to 2,500, around there. It would possibly be less if it was a contract product on a catalogue, as some people are having this on contracts in the larger areas. So that if that's not too broad a spectrum, 1,500 on the lower end and sort of 2.5 on the top. But we think it's actually really competitive based on what it does and the cost. So yeah, hopefully that's a pretty good deal.
And the element of reissue massively, obviously, if you've got a chair for around the 2,000 mark or under, and it can be added on or adjusted and stuff for reissue, then yeah, definitely cost saver with regards to some of the other chairs on the market as well. Okay, no, that's great. Thank you very much, Richard, and thank you for taking part in our first Rise review.